So a few Sundays ago, I left my water bottle at church. Again. Some of you know this about me. You've sent me the, "Is it yours?" text. I owned somewhere around 8 of them, scattered around every place I spend significant time. The car, my desk, my nightstand. And yes, I leave them even more places. It has become a running joke. But the more I think about it, the more it strikes me as a particularly modern quirk. Having a personal water bottle, a personal water source within arm's reach at all times. Is a privilege so ordinary that we've stopped noticing it. That is not the world that the Bible emerges from. Thirst, real desperate thirst, is the central conflict of the Exodus passage that was just read. God's people are in the desert, and water is nowhere to be found. They grumble. But this is not a simple story about hydration. What they actually grumble about is something deeper. The absence of a God they thought they could rely on. In the middle of their need, they face a choice. Trust him or don't. That is why 300 years later, this moment still echoes in Psalm 95, like an old wound. You guys read that passage. It's kind of awkward, wasn't it? It's like an old relationship wound that comes up again. Remember when you... But the temptation to doubt God in the middle of our need did not stay in the desert. Most of us here do not thirst for water, right? But we do thirst. It is a deeply human impulse to long and to hope and to fear that what we have will be taken away and we will never get the things we long for. Which brings us to a well in Samaria, in the middle of the day, where Jesus is about to cross every barrier that polite society has erected to reach one very thirsty soul. And as we follow this encounter, I want us to see 3 things. The length he will go to reach her, the depth in her soul to which he speaks, and the breadth of what happens afterwards. So the length, the depth, the breadth. So the length he will go to reach her. So the awkwardness of this encounter is palpable in the very first exchange. Jesus asks her for a drink, and she responds to a question that is really a challenge. Why are you talking to me? Her surprise is entirely understandable because in asking that question, Jesus has already reached across 3 very thick social barriers. The first is ethnic. He's a Samaritan. He's a Jew. At this point in history, the animosity between the 2 groups ran deep. The Samaritans had built an alternate temple. The Jews had destroyed it. Imagine that. And the mutual contempt between the 2 groups had grown from there. The second is gender. Women held a precarious standing in this world. A rabbinic mourning blessing of the era thanked God that the one praying was not a Gentile, a slave, or a woman. The so-called bruised Pharisees, you find out why in a second, would cover their eyes rather than risk seeing a woman on the street as she passed by. And they'll walk into walls in the process, hence why they're bruised. Absurd? Yes. But this was the cultural air that people breathed. Throughout his ministry, Jesus repeatedly and deliberately subverts this way of seeing or not seeing women. He does so again here. So the third wall is the most significant. He is a rabbi, and she is a social and moral outcast. This is a wall that she herself has probably helped to build, unbeknownst to her. You see, women would not normally come to a well at noon. It's too hot, too late in the day, it's too lonely. The reason she's here at this hour is almost certainly to avoid the other women who know her history and have made their judgment known to her. She's had 5 husbands, and the one she's living with right now is not her husband. In a small town with long memories, that kind of history follows you. So every one of these walls is a reason for Jesus not to be here. His reputation, his standing, his ministry, all are now in question. Yet, he does so. Why do you think so? You can't actually answer, so I'll answer for you. Because this is what grace looks like in motion. It does not wait for you to clean yourself up. It does not stand at some respectable distance and wave you over. No, it crosses the walls to get to you, whether they're racial, social, moral, religious. It finds you exactly where you are. Jesus would travel any distance, span any divide to reach a thirsty soul. He is, after all, the God who became man precisely to pass through and bridge the ultimate chasm on our behalf. So back to the story. So when Jesus, a Jewish rabbi, a stranger, a man, sits down and speaks to her, not with contempt, but with genuine attention, something in her must have stirred. Perhaps I'm not as far beyond reach as I thought. A conversation begins. She is cautious. He is patient. And then, without warning, he says, "Go and get your husband." She deflects. "I don't have one." And he gently, unflinchingly, names what she's hiding. "You've had 5, and the man you're with now is not your husband." Why would he do that? Why surface her shame at precisely the moment she's beginning to hope? Well, it's because you cannot be loved behind a mask, actually. You see, if she had walked away from this moment, she might have carried a quiet warmth with her. But somewhere deep inside her, she would have told herself, "He was kind to me because he didn't actually know me." The love would have landed on the surface and then slid right off. It would not really have reached her. You've been in that place too, haven't you? The place where you think, well, they care about me, but they wouldn't if they really knew. If they knew what I'd done, what had been done to me, they wouldn't look at me the same way. That is the lie that keeps many of us from being truly known and truly loved. Jesus is dismantling that lie. He's saying to her, I know the face that you would rather hide. I've seen your whole story, and I'm still here. I am not scandalized. I am not walking away. As Augustine writes, God is more intimate to us than our most intimate selves. He knows you better than you know yourself. And his response to that knowledge is not rejection. It is an offer. The gift of God. Living water. Living water. That is the length he will go. But what kind of thirst would require such a gift? To answer this, we need to stop looking at the barriers around her life and actually start looking at the wounds inside her. See, in this world, marriage was not a partnership of equals. Under the prevailing teaching of the day, a man could dismiss his wife for almost any reason. A woman had no such right. So 5 marriages almost certainly means that she was cast off 5 times, handed a certificate of divorce, and sent away. Each time, a covenant that promised to be enough simply discarded her. And now, she's living with a man outside of marriage entirely. Perhaps because after 5 dismissals, no one would offer her the dignity of another covenant after all. She has not walked away from the promise. The promise, it seems, has walked away from her. And beneath it all, she is wandering through this desert of existential thirsts, like our friends in Exodus, for something she has never actually experienced. Like Israel in the desert, she knows what it is to wonder whether God has abandoned her. And then Jesus sits down at the well. See, she came looking for water. She will live with something else entirely. Because Jesus is not talking about water anymore. He's speaking to the ache underneath, the longing that no well is ever able to reach. So do you see yourself here? Perhaps not the exact details, but the shape, the workings of the thing, the job that let you go, the relationship you gave everything to and it wasn't enough, the parent whose approval you've been reaching out for all your life and you still haven't received. The moment you realize that someone you trusted had simply decided that you were no longer worth the trouble. A version of your life that you imagined and have quietly mourned, not because you walked away from it, but because perhaps it was taken away from you. That thirst is real, and Jesus is not embarrassed by it, as palpable as the silence is in this room. He walks straight towards it. Tolkien described the deepest human longing as joy beyond the walls of the world, poignant as grief. That phrase has always struck me as exactly right, because I know that feeling. There are longings in my own life that nothing in this world has been able to touch. And they do feel like a form of grief. And whatever your version of that search has been, perhaps the career, the relationship, the move, the next big thing, you know that ache too. But your thirst is not a flaw. It is an invitation. Come, drink, and live. But John wants us to see something even more specific happening in this scene, because the way Jesus approaches this woman is not accidental. John has constructed this story with enormous care. There's detail here that actually changes everything. Let's look again at this chance meeting. A man, a woman, a well, in a foreign land. He asked her for a drink. If you had grown up reading the Hebrew scriptures the way Jesus' first followers had, something in you would have quickened at this point, because you would have seen this scene before. So in Genesis 24, Abraham's servant travels to a distant land to find a wife for Isaac. He comes to a well. A young woman approaches. He asks her for a drink. Her name is Rebecca, and she becomes Isaac's bride. In Genesis 29, Jacob arrives at the well in a foreign land. A young shepherdess comes with her father's flock. Her name is Rachel. He asks her for a drink. He's immediately smitten. They marry. Now, John 4. Jesus comes to a well in a foreign land. Jacob's well. A woman comes alone. He asks her for a drink. See, John sets up this scene in the previous chapter where we find John the Baptist commenting on his role in Jesus' ministry. Here's what he says: the friend who attends the bridegroom, who waits and listens for him, and is full of joy when he hears the bridegroom's voice. The bridegroom is here. He has come to the well. Do you see what John is doing? This woman who has been cast off by 5 husbands is not just really receiving a theology lesson about living water. She is sitting across from the one every husband has been pointing towards and failing to be. The true husband of God's people has arrived. And in this apparently chance encounter, in the heat of the day, at the bottom of her disappointment, she meets him. The bridegroom has come to the well. And if that sounds too good to be true, notice that God has been making this promise to his people for centuries. Isaiah wrote hundreds of years before this encounter. Fear not, for you will not be ashamed, for your Maker is your husband. The Lord of hosts is his name. For the Lord has called you like a wife deserted and grieved in spirit, like a wife of youth when she is cast off, says your God. A wife deserted, grieved in spirit, cast off. This is precisely who's sitting at the well. The Samaritan woman came to that well carrying the accumulated weight of 5 different broken covenants. 5 times someone had promised to be enough and discarded her anyway. And here, at the bottom of that disappointment, she encounters the one who is the point of every promise, all along. Friends, this is what Lent is for. Lent is not primarily about giving things up, as much as we do it. It is about true worship, waking up to what we have been reaching for instead of Him. Maybe for you, it is the phone you reach for first thing in the morning. Maybe it is the comfort that's quietly shifted from enjoyment to necessity. Maybe it is the relationship you keep returning to, not because it's life-giving, but because the silence without it, it's unbearable. These are not evil things, but we have been asking them to be God, and they cannot bear that weight. Lent invites us to set them down, to sit and to thirst long enough to remember who the true source is. We reorder our loves one by one until we remember who we've been longing for and the way that He longs for us. And His longing, as it turns out, was the kind of thirst that took Him all the way to the cross. So that is the depth to which He reaches, the breadth to which His gift travels. Look at what happens next. John gives us one of the most quietly astonishing details in his entire gospel. She left her water jar. See, she came to that well for one reason. She had timed her trip to avoid the other women. She had made the walk in the midday heat alone because she needed water and could not afford the humiliation of getting it any other way. The water jar was the entire point of the journey. She leaves it behind. Instead, she runs back into town and goes straight to the people she had been hiding from. The same town that knew her history. The same neighbors she had been avoiding that very day. She goes to them and says, "Come and see a man who told me everything I ever did." Something has fundamentally changed in her. See, she came to that well ashamed. She leaves purposeful. She's no longer defined by what was done to her. She's defined by who she has found. And who she has found is too compelling to keep to herself. She has become, in the space of one conversation, the first evangelist in John's gospel. She who used to avoid now cannot be avoided. She who was excluded now is ensuring absolutely no one is excluded from this news. The walls that once kept her out are now the walls that she's stepping over to bring others in. She has been loved across different barriers, and now she carries that love back into a community that shunned her. See, she has become the gospel in the flesh. She was discarded. Now she's known. Now she's loved. And now she's sent. This is the gift of God. It is not stagnant water. It is grace, erupting into our stories, transforming the way we see ourselves, transforming the way we see the Lord, and transforming the way we see others. Whatever your life was, you carry living water from its source. You too will overflow with his praises. And like her, you can carry it back, even to the people you would rather avoid. So hear and be encouraged. Jesus promised living water, welling up to eternal life. And he was not speaking only to her. See, he's not a statue. He's a spring overflowing among us still. You, here, now, can drink from that same spring. Not as those who grieve without hope, but as those who are loved. He overflows through his word, through fasting, through confession, through prayer, through our upcoming service time at Hope's Corner, through the Lord's Supper. See, every means of grace is a place where living water meets us afresh. So be cheered, friends. Her story is your story, pressed into one single afternoon at a well. As you go into your week, to your different wells, to your different thirsts, remember all of your life, all of the earth, all of the future will be bathed in that sweet spring. As John Calvin once urged, drink your fill from this fountain and from no other. Drink and live.